Hey guys, thanks for joining Sprinter Mom with Lashes On. Again, this is Sara. I'm here with my lovely husband and guest, Ryan Senters. He is here to talk about one of our sons, one of many, and a very sensitive subject for us.
Yes.
So here we go.
This is the Sprinter Mom with Lashes On podcast.
If it's your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. That little button, it's just looking at you. You don't want to miss an episode. The best podcast around. And so, babe, we're going to talk about a serious thing. We've been adoptive foster parents for most of our life. It feels like most of our married life, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine that how many kids have we had in our family and life?
In our house, or
Yes.
do we have? Hold on, I can tell you exactly.
We don't need to go through the whole number. I mean, over 15?
15. 15 to 16, yeah, 15.
Yes. You look good.
Oh, no. 16.
A mom of 16. You look so great. And you still wear the ripped jeans.
A mom of 11.
Yes.
Ryan thinks the ripped jeans are out, but I will forever keep them in style. Me and Kourtney Kardashian.
Yes.
And our rips.
Yes. We do make fun of each other on our podcast when we listen to each other.
Yes, we do. Speaking of having 11 kids. One of my ideas was to specifically talk about one of our sons. It was my idea. I was reading a book recently talking about parenting, and they described whether you're a foster parent, adoptive parent, biological parent, grandparent, whatever it may be. And then they said, you have a prodigal kid. And I was like, oh, that is quite the way to put it, because oftentimes people will ask us how many kids we have. And sometimes Ryan always says we have 9 because we technically have 9 in the home. And he thinks it's freakish if we say 11, but I'm like, no, I get credit for 11. But we have a prodigal son.
Yes.
And
for those who don't know, prodigal son is like in Luke 15 when the son of the father runs away and we're waiting for the day for him to come home.
Yeah.
And we've been adoptive foster parents. My hair is thinning. The bags under my eyes are probably for this
reason.
Yes. Yeah. And I love this kid immensely. I'm obsessed with the kid. And it's probably been a long time coming for us to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And before we even start this episode, we're going to actually show you guys a video that our church filmed. They reached out and they said, hey, we want to talk about foster care and adoption. They really had a compelling story. This is on my YouTube channel, has one of the most views, but it's a story of our son, Christian, when he came into our home, how he came into care, and then came into our home, and then how he ended up his first part of his story. So take a look.
No, you can't put the yellow down.
Sara and I have been foster parents for 8 years. I think for us, it's like they didn't choose their beginning.
And everyone always says to us, I'm so glad you're doing it. I could never do it.
Yeah.
But I think if everyone said, I could never do it, then no one would be. We are that family that will just do it.
My name is Ryan Senters, and this is my wife, Sara, and we have 6 kids, 4 adopted out of foster care. So after we were foster and adoptive parents for a season, and our house was filling up, and we're like, we cannot have any more kids in our own home. But we still very much felt called to the work. So we opened up a social service agency called Ohana. We wanted to make sure that if we can't have any more kids in our home, that these kids have a family. About 3 years ago, our family was full. We had 5 kids in our house and we were very busy. And I got a call from a caseworker, and they had this kid who has been in foster care for, at that time, 6 years. I think at this point, probably 7 or 8 different homes. That's a lot of picking up your stuff. The caseworker said he didn't want a family, he just needed a place till he could age out. He really was just scared to get hurt again. So he moved in to Ohana, and his name was Christian. And for some reason, him and I just really had a solid bond. And I remember there was this moment that happened. I remember sitting in his room in our group home, And he says, you know what, Ryan, I just want a dad who will teach me to drive and parents who will go watch my games. And I felt like the Spirit in ways I have never felt before. I called Sarah and he said, we have to adopt Christian.
There wasn't really a hesitation. I mean, we knew it would be hard. So very normal things for us were triggering for him.
There were moments that he was trying to bond and attach with us and me in particular, and it got too real. And he actually ran away, and that was hard. And that moment, hearing nothing from him for months and months and months. Like, it felt like a death. Fast forward, and around Christmas time,
It was like Christmas Day or the day after Christmas.
he says, hey, Dad, I just want to come home. I just want to come home. And he moved home and has been a different kid. A kid we prayed for.
I think going through so many different foster families, I kind of had an outlook on how foster families were. You know, I seen the worst, I seen the best, I seen, you know, on the edge of taking me out, or throwing me to another group home. I think with the Senters family, it's more of like, they wanted me. No matter what I was going through, no matter where I was at, no matter what situation I was in, they always said, you know, we love you. And I think for me, it's like, that showed me a lot.
I think for us, like, this, God calls us to love. The Spirit is love. And we have to, like, start there. It's a big thing to love, and it takes a lot of time. And it's hard, and it's messy, but it's worth it. I have watched the other aspects of God's goodness and His Spirit come out. So I've watched Christian have peace in his life when his whole life has been unrest and turmoil. And now he just gets to be a kid. That's only from God.
I think family means like loving each other no matter what someone does. I think loving is the main part of family.
So for those of you that have seen the movie Instant Family with Mark Wahlberg, they have that story of that success family that had the foster child that they adopted, and it was all peaches and lovely and whatnot. But you learn throughout the movie when they go back to visit that family that was at the group or whatever, that it's not a peachy story, that the child had a lot of issues, that child was no longer living with them. And I feel like that's the story that a lot of families on the outside
Portrays what?
don't ever know about. But it's like actually fostering and adopting is really hard.
Yeah, it's really complicated and hard and amazing and difficult and worth it. And as I'm even thinking through this in my own head right now, there's like parts of the story I'm so about honoring our kids and honoring their story. So I never want to dishonor my son and everything. And we just feel like a very strong sense of like, hey, we want to encourage other foster and adoptive families that this is the real parts of it. There are great things, but things to also be prepared for. And there is, sometimes you just have to leave this into God's hand. Like, I never would have thought that I had a homeless son. I never would have thought I had a son who I am waiting to get the call back. I never thought I would have a son I got a call that he was in jail, or I had to get out of a really tough situation time and time again. So as you saw, he ran away and he came back home. And after he came back home the first time, he was about 16 years old, and things were really good.
Yeah.
He really, he wants to please. He is the most loving, kid you'll ever meet. He so desperately wanted a family, loved us. He was very attached to us. And then he was going to youth group. He was a leader at our church. He would lead worship and host for third and fourth graders. He had a great youth leaders in his life. He had a job at Sonic and at Walgreens, and he would go as a car hop, and we'd go greet him, and he would smile and laugh and be so awkward. And embarrassing him while he gave me tater tots was the joy of my life. And as COVID kind of emerged, he was turning 17 years old, and we started noticing that he started to kind of remove himself from us and the social situations, and you could see that in his mind started to race. He had these kind of mental health challenges for most of his childhood and most of his life. He had some really horrific things in his past story. And I remember when Sara and I first adopted him, the case manager gave us his file finally after we adopted him and gave us the court reports to read. And I have never read something more horrific in my life. And we were both like just wanting to puke.
Yeah.
And just grieving for our son, who we love so much. And as he's 17 years old and kind of getting through kind of his young adulthood, we started watching his mental health kind of deteriorate.
It also doesn't help that COVID really gave a lot of isolation, and everything he was involved in and everything he was looking forward to got canceled or pushed out. Yeah. And so the things that brought him joy or let him feel like life is normal all shut down.
Yeah. I always compare it to, like, as a psychologist, I'm always thinking like, everyone has a risk of mental health issues. Yeah. Everyone has a risk that that depression or anxiety is going to kick in. It just depends on their environment that they're in, the amount of stress that they have in their life. And for our son, this was the moment where the stress became so much. And what we know is that when a young man is turning 17, 18, serious mental illness, if they have a family history of it, which he did, really starts to emerge. So if it's serious mental illness, if it's bipolar or schizophrenia or any of these other types of serious mental illness, they emerge during this time. So he's under immense stress and he is isolated. And then what kind of was the beginning point is he came home from youth group when he was 17 years old, and he goes into his cabinet, and we worked so hard to get him to where he could take his own medications. Yeah. And we'd always have to remind him. For 5 years, I have been green in my head. I said it twice a day. Hey, son, did you take your meds? Hey, son, did you take your meds? It's just always reflex. And then he comes home from youth room, son, take your meds. And I look over. He says, uh-huh. And then he grabbed the pill bottle, but then he just put it back. I go, did you take your meds? He's like, yeah. And I go and look at the meds. And probably the first time I actually checked him, and all the meds were still in there. So for months, or for I don't know how long, he was hiding that he was taking these meds. And then it turned into a big explosion because I confronted him on that, and he got so escalated and frustrated.
This wasn't the first fight, but this was the first time that he really felt like he was adult enough to
I can do whatever
make his
I
own
want.
choices.
Sure.
Yes.
And I think he was 17, 18.
He was, I think he actually was, had
just turned 18,
had just
maybe.
turned 18, yeah.
But he hasn't graduated high school yet.
No.
And it turned into an explosion where he's coming up in my face, and it takes everything in me as a having this kid come up in you, and it's like, this has been ongoing. I mean, there's been broken windows and broken doors and running aways, and we've normally been able to kind of just de-escalate, but like watching and then him hide the meds, and then from our young kids were in there watching this, and we definitely had some heated words between him and I, and he ended up running away again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this time, we thought it was for good, or we didn't think it would be. He ran away.
What do you mean for good?
Like, there's always this level of like,
You thought he was going to come back in a week or a day or so?
well, at first, yeah.
Like we thought he's just heated and pissed off. He's going to come
He
back.
couldn't really do things on his own. He needed a lot of support from us as parents, and he didn't have much. I think he had lost a car. He had like totaled his car, so he was always on foot.
Do you notice how like this is like years ago, but it almost becomes like a blur. Like it's like this traumatic event in our life that you almost forget.
Because we blocked it out and no one wants to remember it. That's why we don't talk about it. Like our kids will give glimpses of what they saw during that time.
Tell them before this, when we started getting suspicious when you went to Sonic.
Oh my gosh, I am such a good parent. So we, of course, have the
I could never have
find
like
your
ever
phone.
step out on our marriage because this is how.
Because I will find him. I am a stalker. And so we have like find your phone or find your friends. And we always knew where he was. And oftentimes he would say, yeah, I'm going to work. I'm going to Sonic. It was down the road. He could walk there. But he had some people that he always wanted to hang with, but they weren't people that we trusted. And so, of course, we would say no. We said no to a lot of things because we're parents. That's what we do. But he one time said that he was at work. And I'm like, okay, then if you're at work and your phone's been there this whole time, I'll go up and say hi to you. So I go up and come to find out he wasn't at work that day. And this is like the second time it happened though. He not only was he not at work, then I asked his manager where he was. And the manager said, oh, he just showed up and put his phone in the office and then left. Oh, that's why it appears he's at Sonic. He was not there. And so I asked the manager, do you know of his whereabouts? Can you tell me anything? And the guy was like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't share that information. And I'm like, I am his mother and he has been missing. And so actually you do get to share with me. So the guy shared everything that he could and we ended up finding him at a house.
So for many of times he's been hiding out, and
we don't even know how much he lied.
He store his phone at work.
Another time he was working at Walgreens.
The lying is I could deal with the mental health stuff, but the lying.
Another time he told you he had work, and then
but he was sleeping in the.
But he was sleeping in the work room, like
not work. You know what? I could go on for days of the stories that were totally true at the time, and you believed it. The amount of anxiety that you have, and the amount of thinking that we have put into every single situation. Where is he? What is he doing? Is this true? Is this not?
Who's he texting? Is he on social media? Did he change his name?
Yeah. Because at this point, he ran away. Fast forward, we have a blow up. He runs away. We have no contact with him. Oh, then he's in private school, and we get a hold of the principal who says he is contacting us at school.
But he didn't show up.
But he wouldn't show up.
So this was his last semester of high school, and
he says
went MIA.
He says he's living somewhere, but we find out because he starts posting on different Facebook pages.
He's living in a park.
He's living in a park down the street. And we try to go get him. We're like, what, living in a park? And he says, I got a car. And he somehow got some car and was living. I'm like, who are you staying with? And he met some girl at Sonic, which now is the mother of our grandson.
Yes. So he did come back months later. He came back months later because he was expecting a baby. Yeah. We, in the meantime, had moved. It was so traumatizing, his move out. And he posted online our address, go find my dad.
There were people coming into Sky Zone and making death threats about us because he was making these long rants about how my dad owns these companies. He is stealing from me.
He's abusive
and all this stuff. And then I had these people just calling and stuff like that. And that was like, at first you just feel like a personal attack and how dare you. But then as time went on, you just kind of feel like, man, I love this kid and he's sick.
And he's spiraling.
Yeah. His mental health got so bad where he started to have like this serious mental illness, like the hearing things and not on his medication, and
someone's always after him.
Yeah, it's really sad.
So we moved out of not really fear, but just being like, okay, everyone knows where our house is.
I know we kind of are very quick to make a decision, it seems like, isn't it?
Yeah, but we moved to like a great house, great neighborhood.
We moved because it was like such a hard, like the cops coming to our house and trying to find him, and then the death threats and all the things. It was just getting a little too much.
So months later, he's
when
back.
people think about craziness, this is like, who would want this?
I know. I'm thinking we try to encourage people to be foster parents, and we're like, guess what?
Watch
it sucks.
Watch this podcast. You'll love it.
But I would say he came back, which the kids were very excited because they love their brother.
Because he got back, we got back on meds.
He got back on meds. He was expecting a baby.
This is the cycle. Up, down, meds, no meds, meds, no meds.
So he was expecting a baby, got engaged.
In our backyard.
So
this is the third time he came home.
Yeah.
This was the third, and we kind of really had put some really strict boundaries on him. We moved him into the bedroom. We said, hey, we got him a job at our Ohana at that time. He was working overnight shifts, got a clearance card.
We said, stay here and get your GED.
And I said, hey, I'm going to deposit your money into a separate bank account that you can't get access to. You're going to or half the money is going to be deposited there as a moving on fund, and we'll help you. And if you're going to stay here, the rules are you have to get sleep, because he would not sleep for days. He had to sleep. He had to be on his meds, and I had to give him his meds physically, which at this point, he's 19 years old, and having to do this just feels really awkward, but I didn't care. And then he had to get his GED.
Yeah.
And we got him enrolled. By all of grace of God, he did finish and got his GED. We were so proud of him for that. And he proposed to his baby mama. Is that what we say it?
Yeah.
And they were engaged.
His son was born in November.
And they moved into an apartment at that point.
Yeah.
And we were like, everything is like very rocky. Like, oh, is this going to be good or not?
Are you settled? Everything appears to be fine.
What's true? What's not?
You just don't know.
You don't know.
But now there's a baby involved. You want everyone to be healthy
You
for
hosted
the baby
shower for our grandson.
It was small and sweet. He was already born.
Yep.
And
Nothing ever was the picture, I would say. I think what we have learned as foster and adoptive parents is that the picture that you have in your head most times doesn't come to be.
No.
And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Especially if I think our younger kids, their story will be different, but the older kids, like much of their story is already written and they have a lot of personal history, and we just have to like love them where they're at. And like the situations that he was a part of and like this, we just kind of had to reset our expectations. Like, all right, we're going to move home again. We're going to do a reset here. We're going to set boundaries.
We're going to get our GED.
Yeah.
We're going to make small steps.
I mean, I thought he was going to be this youth pastor or be able to work at Ohana, and he was playing football. And I mean, it was just, the picture that you had in your head sometimes doesn't come to be, but that's okay.
So he has a baby was that 2021?
Mm-hmm.
Was it 2021? He has a baby at the beginning of November. And before Thanksgiving even comes, I would say 2 weeks into having an infant, he
got a call
to prove that he's a man.
Yeah.
And that he can take care of his son.
Yeah. So we have so at this point we're kind of intermittent. We moved him out of his baby mama out of the house of their apartment because there was some suspicions of he was not being safe, and he wasn't being safe. And I was lit because you don't ever do that with a woman or a baby, and not going to perpetuate this cycle. So I thank God my father-in-law is much more sober-minded for me, because I was just lit and ready to go show my son that this is not how we do it. But we didn't do that, but we went and got her out of the house and moved her out.
We moved her to her sister's house so that she could be safe.
Yeah. And then days later, it's Thanksgiving. We're having Thanksgiving at my mom's place, and
with
she's
her
with
and
her
his
baby.
son.
And we haven't heard from our son, and we're like, where is he? And all of a sudden, I keep getting this calls on my phone, like no caller ID, dozens of calls. And it usually only means one thing. And I finally pick up the call and he says, Dad, I'm in prison. I'm like, what? Like, you're in prison? He's like, yeah. He's like, I go, what? Where are you? He's like, I'm in Casa Grande or Sierra Verde. I go, what happened? Well, he says,
mind you, now, when you think someone's in jail, you're like, okay,
DUI.
Did you pick up a hooker? Are you selling drugs?
Yeah, like, what
DUI,
DUI, like, did you steal something? Like,
totally.
Yeah,
I would understand that. Not really, but
like if you stole something, okay, we make deal with it and we move on. Like again, the level of crazy, a level of grace. I don't know. I don't know.
We have lowered our expectations.
But this one we never would have thought.
No.
He says, Dad, I was trying to prove that I could be there for my kid, and I saw that I could make some money on Snapchat. Mm-hmm. So on Snapchat, he found a guy that is coyotes, where they smuggle illegals in from Mexico. So he took his car and went over the border to Mexico with his car and picked up 6 illegals, and then goes over the border and then goes and then notices that the border patrol is coming after him, and then he starts going on because they caught him. He has 6 illegals in his car, and he's going on a high-speed chase through the border of the U.S. and Mexico, goes off-roading, goes through a neighborhood and hits a ravine, and all of a sudden all the illegals and him go running out, guns pulled on him, and him and all the illegals are arrested. And he gets charged with felony for human smuggling.
Yeah.
For human smuggling.
It was like $1,500 a head.
No, $15,000 a head plus.
Wow.
Plus, it could be up to 6 years in prison or something. And this is federal prison. So at this point on, he was in jail for 6 months because they're waiting for arraignments and all of this, and then his mental health to stabilize so he could be able to do that. Because they need to make sure that you're mentally in a good place to be able to do this. And it's been heartbreaking.
Ever since.
Yeah.
It's never gotten better.
No.
And he was able to get out and I picked him up from jail, or did I pick him up from rehab? One or the other. He got sent to rehab for 30 days, had to prove that he could do certain things, work, not be sober, take his meds, all that. And he did it. He graduated the program.
Yeah. And he's been in and out of living with friends and families, and then parole officers calling me and calling him because he's missing. And now he has a warrant out for his arrest, and he's homeless right now. And I have dozens of texts with no response.
It's a little surreal.
And I know, and then there has been days where we have come and we've been, I had a feeling in my spirit. I remember I was at the gym, and for days I'm like, I think our son is dead.
Yeah.
And I'm just I could not get it out of my head.
So then I went and drove around with Nana for hours looking for him on the side of the road.
Yeah, you just can't even get out of your head, the idea of thinking that your kid that you love so much, even though he has so much of a past, and you just can't imagine, in my head, of the unknown and not hearing anything, you're just grieving through, all right, he's passed away and he's in a better place and all of this. And we're calling morgues and hospitals and jails and looking things up, and no response. I finally post on social media, if anyone's seen him, hundreds of shares, thousands of likes. 2 weeks later, he comes out and responds on the post.
Yeah, very planned out. Actually, it was really well written, which is how we know he didn't write it, because he doesn't even speak that eloquently. And so it sounds mean. It was his heart, but it was someone else typing it for him.
Yeah. And for us, we were so glad he was safe and he's alive. But I think now it's just kind of waiting for this prodigal, right?
Yeah, because
he's been always 8 months.
Because he's also always attacking you.
It's all right.
No, I know. And I know you can handle it. But in my heart, I just feel so bad for the kids, because even Maddox one time, we had a gal, like we hadn't seen her in a year, and then she returned, and he's like, what is this with like people leaving our lives and like we don't see them again, and then randomly they show up? And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's how it would feel when you've had some older siblings who've ran away.
Or after he came back home, our youngest son, again, Maddox, he sat at dinner and he had to wear a Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, he wouldn't
because
even
he didn't
show
want
his
his
face.
brother. And it's just, that's the heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
That's like the collateral damage I don't think people anticipate, and us, we didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
Is that like our kids, that our kid like miss their brother and love him deeply, and he's not around.
But
and the loss, but it has built up some battle wounds for them. Like they've learned, like, I don't know, this is the ministry we do, and your brother's we never talk bad about him.
No.
We have told him that he's made bad choices.
And they know that he's not healthy.
Yeah.
And that when he's healthy, he can be around us.
Yeah. Yeah. We always use the word healthy. Right now, he's like, Daddy has to take his medicine for his diabetes. Christian has to take his medicine, and right now he's not.
Yeah.
So he's not healthy, but he will.
Yeah.
And we miss him and we want him home.
Yeah.
But right now, he's not in a good spot.
I also think that's where, I swear, from doing foster care, my heart has turned a little bit hard out of protection for myself and protection for, the grief of it. But I would say that after a couple of times of going through this with the fights and the screams and the social media blasts, now I'm in a place where our younger ones are more of the priority, because we have to see their childhood through and protect them and keep them safe. And there are so many times where I'm like, when you're healthy, I would love to have you around. But in the meantime, our priority is protecting the kids that God has put in our home.
Yeah.
And he is past that age where he gets to be priority.
Yeah. And I think that's really hard to think about. And
especially as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a lot like you never want to think about that. We have a grandchild. He's developmentally young, but you're 22 now.
2 now. Yeah.
And you're choosing to be homeless.
No, I think he's 21.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. But we have learned, I guess the things that we've learned is, one, that mental health is a real thing. And the parent's story and their past story, some of this stuff, like we've raised these kids, like our daughter, the exact same, very similarly, and the outcomes have been drastically different. And
because of the mental health.
Yeah. And you can do your darndest to make it good. And it just sometimes, like, you can't change those genetics and the trauma that has been there.
Yeah.
You can love hard, love well, but you got to give it to God and let him deal with that. What else have you learned? What about your hard heart? You like a very hard.
Well,
I think because you're going through your therapy right now to get over that.
I am.
Like
I am a stuffer.
She's a stuff. She stuffs all emotion. She's fine. She keeps everything proper. We make fun of her that she's Kourtney Kardashian because.
Yeah.
Because that, if you remember the Kardashian, I don't.
But just.
She doesn't really have any emotion.
Not much of a sharer.
Yeah.
I would say though that
you're gonna shift over. You just literally just did that. You just.
I know. I'm not talking about my heart right now. I was gonna say something I've learned.
But what about your heart?
Hold on. I'll talk about my heart in a second. Something that I've learned is that even though Ryan and I put in the work we got him at 14 and we put in the work for 6-7 years. We might not see the fruit of that. He was in a healthy family. He knew Jesus, asked Jesus into his heart. He had great mentors and believers around him and great siblings. So for 6 to 7 years, we provided the best vision of a family possible. And maybe when he turns 30, that could play out for him and his family and his future. Or it might be at a time where we don't even get to see the fruit of our work. But I pray that there's enough instilled in him that he knows what family should look like. He knows how a husband should treat his wife. He knows how siblings should interact with each other. Like he's seen enough healthy to trump some of that past.
Like just playing, like you think back to all the memories of him with our family.
We've had great memories.
Taking him to, I remember when he came to, we took him the first time to Cancun. He's walking around the resort like he's a stud with his white beater on, his tank top on, trying to talk to all the ladies. I'm like, bro,
drinking a beer because he was 18 and thought it was like the coolest thing ever. Oh, sorry. When we're in Mexico, we follow Mexico rules.
When in Mexico.
We are cool parents. Just kidding.
And then he'd be
Not that
pissed that
cool.
he couldn't even get on his social media in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. We've taken the phone away plenty of
Oh,
times.
yeah, that's a great one.
Let me just tell you, when he moved out, how many cell phones and laptops I found hidden around the room. I was like,
you think like we were young parents. I mean, we're not that young anymore, but like when
speak for yourself.
we thought we were on top of the tech, this kid took us to the cleaners.
Yeah.
He knew every tech trick and would get these other VPNs and other phones and hotspots to this hotspot and like.
But now I feel like he prepared us in a way for these next kids.
All these 9 kids got to watch out. This is on lockdown.
They're in trouble.
Every single kid has screen time, tech-free days.
We learned from the best.
Yes.
Thank
you,
Christian.
son. You have shown us the way. But every time you got to get better. So now you're a stuffer and you're trying
I'm
to
a stuffer.
So you're learning to try to let people in.
I'm learning to have feelings. I'm learning to
What does that mean?
feel. I think that through foster care, there, especially being the mom and the mom guilt and disruptions are different things that we've gone through. I think as a woman and as the mom, you take it harder, at least internally. And because I'm pulling myself together for the 4 that we had at the time at home, I stuff it and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Yeah. And so what I'm learning is that I have to feel it to not either repeat those feelings or like, I don't know, just hang on to it. And I do have a pretty hard heart.
It's getting a little more.
It's getting a little soft, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I have learned is I want to fix everyone, and I want every kid, not just fix, but I tie my own personal success to the success of my kids, and that's not fair to my kids or fair to myself, and I can't do that, and I need to do the best I can as a dad, be super engaged and loving and present. But I need to let them be them and help them develop as a child, as a young man and a young woman. And so they can take that steps forward for them.
Yeah.
And like you got to honestly, like, instead of control, you got to at some point say, all right, we've done the work we can and leave it up. And I believe that when we look forward to, we're going to watch this podcast in years to come, and we're going to sit with our son, and we're going to cry together, we're going to laugh together, and we're going to celebrate that like God is redeeming this, and he has redeemed, and I'm going to continue to hope for that.
That's good.
Well, I love you, you little warrior.
Yeah. I remember July 1st was the last time we saw him on his birthday when he turned 21. And it was so cool because we were able to go to church. And our oldest daughter, I called her. I'm like, Pima, get over here. And she did. And so we have a picture with all of our new kids and then our kids, blended. And I printed it out and have it at home because I thought, I don't know the next time we'll see him. And I don't know.
Yeah. But he will be back.
Yep.
All right, let's stuff the feelings down for today. Until next time, I hope you're encouraged in the hardships of life and know that the journey is worth it. That purpose, there is always purpose through pain. And it's better to do it together.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. And to share your story tends to take away the little sting after a while.
Yeah.
So we love you guys. Reach out if you have any hateful comments in to say.
We'll delete them.
We'll delete. No, I'll look at them and laugh because I'm like, then you do it. Then you're welcome to do the journey because you're allowed to give your hate if you stepped in our shoes or done it. But if you don't, peace out. Till next time.
Thanks for joining us today for the Sprinter Mom with Lashes On podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next week.